and on a slightly shorter time frame compared to the previous question, do you think about the future much on the order of 5 to 10 years?
I see. So that might explain it. Yeah. No, I don't. I don't. I don't. And I think I also don't have the tools and frameworks to. Um, I think you, for example, have much more of that, and I think you are often thinking ahead for us that where is this going and what happens in 5 years or things of that sort. I don't. Yeah, I don't. One, I don't have the inclination to, and two, I don't have the tools to, and those might be correlated. But yeah.
Do you think about the future much, say on the 5 to 10 year scale horizon?
Sure, I think we all have to think about that. So that's literally why I've made it. It's during this COVID period that I've made the hard decision that yes, I am going to retire at 65. Plus, you look at the retirement funds, and it's like I have a big nest egg to live on, right? Why do I don't need to keep doing? Particularly, I mentioned the thing that I really hate, which is grading, right? So, I mean, the classroom lectures and things I enjoyed teaching at that level, but all the administrivia around teaching and stuff, I do not find. So I'd be just as happy to stop that, retire at 65 and write my book.
Do you think much about the future on a 5 to 10 year scale?
5, yes. 10, not as much. I tend to approach career things in terms of 5-year chunks, in the sense of like that seems like the right amount of time where you can start something, make progress on something, and kind of like see the effect of something in the research world. So I think a lot about like when those sort of boundary points come, kind of what is the right thing to be thinking about or trying to do or focusing on there. 10 years just feels like a really long time. I don't know how to predict what's going to happen in 10 years. And so I think it's more of just kind of like thinking about what decisions can we make now that will put us in a good place to make the next decision we want to make 5 years from now or something.
Do you think about the future much on a 5 to 10 year scale?
Not 10-year scale, 5-year scale. I do think about it once in a while, and then not for my own, but the 5 years of the time in terms of the where. So yeah, my own as in like not my daily routine, but the 5 years later, what are the things that I want to be? What are the alternatives that I could think of? So yeah, I do think about it quite a bit. Like maybe 5 years down the road, I might actually, work on something completely different. So for instance, I might actually not be a professor anymore. Then, what do I do? Would I actually work as some kind of director of the research center somewhere? That's a possible alternative. And then, I try to simulate, what that's going to be like. Because, I feel like my default mode of the operation is pretty stable and that won't change that much over the next 5 years of time frame. So I try to think a lot about the alternative path that I could take, and then how those paths would lead, what kind of, let's say, situation in 5 years that I'm going to end up had I followed some of those paths.
Do you think much about the future, say on a 5 to 10 year scale?
Yes, I do think about the future. That's maybe even every day, like what how I should plan, like what I should do, like what type of work I need to do, what type of investment I need to do, and these types of things that happens very, very frequently.
Do you think much about the future on a 5 to 10 year horizon?
A little bit, only in like vague thoughts. I don't really work out explicitly like this must be done this month of this year or anything like that. But I do kind of think about what are the big things that need to happen either in work or in personal life, and sort of think through a little bit about the logistics of how to get that done.
Do you generally think about the future on a 5 to 10 year horizon?
it's funny because that's such a risky. 5 to 10 years means I don't know, right? It's like the key word for I don't know. So one thing I love about so the big projects that I've been involved in or close to, body tracking for Kinect. Here's one that I was totally not involved in, but I just think is amazing, which is the head tracking for HoloLens. And for both of those, if you'd asked us, I mean, for Kinect, they literally did ask, people like me at Microsoft, how long before we can have the body tracking? And I would say 5 to 10 years. Both of those suddenly flipped from not done, from 5 to 10 years to just done really fast, 2 years, 3 years or something. So I definitely, I tend to think of things I'm pretty sure we could build, right? Which may seem super near term, but it turns out I've learned that it might take 5 years to build them, right? And many more if you tried to build them on your own, you would take an infinity time. Pardon me, but what I'm getting at is, you have to at some stage actually start trying to close it down, trying to build the thing, and that's the point where 5 to 10 years suddenly becomes 5 years, which may be 3. But you have to stop, and it's not saying the community should not do what the community does, right? Think of ideas, think of benchmarks, follow benchmarks, but at some point you grab that information and just make it work.
Do you think about the future much on a 5 to 10 year scale?
No, I don't. No, I don't. Yeah, no.
Okay. Do you think about the future much on a 5 to 10 year horizon?
5 to 10 year horizon. I'm trying to think about it more in work now. Yeah, also in a personal sense, I'm trying to think a bit about what I want in the next 5 years in our it's that phase of my life, I think. Plan about it. So yeah, a bit recently.
Do you think much about the future on a 5 to 10 year scale?
I think not really. I mean, I look forward to the future, but I don't. I think probably I'm below average in terms of how often I think about the future. And I think that relates to the question of whether I'm a planner. I think because I can't really plan that far ahead. I think there's just nothing for me to do in that space, so I just don't think about it. Yeah, I think I don't.
Do you think about the future much on a 5 to 10 year horizon?
For myself, like career plan kind of thing,
or on a personal front?
Yeah, so I do. I mean, I guess one of the things that for me marks the passage of time right now more than say career objectives is actually in the family side, right? So I've got my youngest are 11-year-old twins, and my oldest is 17. And so, a few years ago, it dawned on me that we're no longer a young family, right? There's a solidly middle-aged family here. and we're starting to get to this point where I feel nostalgic about like family vacations and stuff like that, because I know that pretty soon, and we're already seeing it, that more and more we're taking family vacations and our oldest isn't joining us anymore. And so I'm sort of living through this transition to the kind of the end of the family unit. And so I'm very much aware of that in the next like 5 to 10 years. That's kind of what I think about. So yeah, I guess I do think about this. Yeah, I don't know. I get the impression, I think, in inordinate amount of time about like the future of humanity, but like way, way distant future of humanity. Like it troubles me that we might not be around to survive the death of our son, for example, which is something I don't think I should spend a lot of time worrying about, but I can't help it. It actually does trouble me.
Interesting.
Like,
yeah. No, it doesn't trouble me. But I can't tell if that's normal or not. That's just what my perspective is.
It does trouble me that we may be living too early in a technological age. That there's like, imagine living before cars or electricity, or like, there's a whole bunch of interesting stuff that exists right after you, and you're like,
but I don't know. I'm happy to sort of have this kind of local bias that says we're living the best possible times. Like, and like, I honestly do kind of feel like that. I mean, we're, and especially given the kind of work we do, I feel really privileged to be, with a bit of luck, we're going to see us progress to something pretty special, right? Where we're going to start having agents that are going to be sort of essentially indistinguishable from a kind of human level intelligence, and we will be treating them as humans or beyond humans soon, right? So, I mean, how soon, I have no idea. I hope to see it in my lifetime. I think I do tend to hold with those that say we're much farther than some people might think. I think there was a lot of hype about this like a few years ago that has kind of, I think, calmed down recently, and that's a good thing. But I still think, like, I still expect to see this in the not too distant future, and so I'm excited for that. Yeah, I think that'd be awesome. And so, I mean, seeing that transition, can you imagine a better time to be alive? I don't know. It seems pretty good to me.
How about right after it?
Well, but right after, I mean, who knows what kind of trouble we're creating here, right? Like, maybe no one will have any jobs, or there could be a real problem. I'll be, pretty nicely, safely retired and fishing. And so, yeah. No, look, I think there are going to be social challenges into the future. And I think, hopefully we're going to be creating a much better world, but just being a part of this generation and this, maybe multiple generations that are going through this transition, I think it's been really exciting. But then again, I mean, I think there are change points in history, right? Times that are genuinely different than other times. And as far as I can tell, we're kind of living one, right? And it started like, with the internet and the connectivity, and it's kind of going through to AI. Like, I mean, once we zoom out, like in 200 years from now, like, how are people going to view this time? I think, I don't know, but it looks like it'd be all kind of this pretty significant switch from more of an industrial economy to more of an information economy, and with all of that entails, I think it's kind of exciting to be around for that kind of transition.
Yeah.
Do you think much about the future on a 5 to 10 year horizon?
I don't. I rarely think more than 5 years in advance. Developing the skill to think 5 years in advance, I think, was an interesting challenge as being a professor early on, to think about where things are going, or what would we be working on, and particularly in a world that moves so quickly. It's challenging to think about, but very rarely 10 years in advance. I'm super impressed by people who can do that, or like try to do that.
Do you think about the future much on a 5 to 10 year scale?
No, I think is the short answer. I should think about it more, but I feel like there's a lot of immediate concerns in the 3 months to 1 year range that are dominating a lot of my cycles right now. I suspect, like most people, if I get to that post 10-year moment, many people have that deep meditative reflection of having achieved the goal, what's next? And I think I'll put off too much forward planning until then.